Welcome back, grade 11s. I hope you are ready to tackle the macro environment. Now, let's quickly check what it is that we are going to cover under the macro environment. Now, remember that you need to know the components as well as the extent of control and the challenges. Now, in this case, you must also know how is it that we can be involved in the macro environment and what kind of benefits are we going to get by being involved. Now, the revising keywords that you will come across is the macro environment itself, which is defined as the external environment to the business, and management has no control but must adapt. We also have social responsibility, which is the obligation a business has to protect its environment and improve the quality of life of the people in the community. We then have the term globalization, which is when businesses start operating internationally with businesses in other countries. We then have hedging, which is investing money in a way that its value overcomes inflation. We then have acquisitions, which happens when one business buys another business at an agreed upon price. Now let's look at the components of the macro environment. Now this is also known as the abbreviation PESTLEG. Now this speaks to the political. Now remember, the political is an environment which includes our political parties. Now think about the political parties that you know. Now that refers to the political environment where certain rules are made. We then have the economic, which speaks about inflation and so forth. We then have social, which speaks to the people or the society. Then the technological speaks to the technological advancements that we have over time. We then have the legal. Now, if you remember correctly, the legal speaks about the acts and the constitutions of the country. We then have the environmental, where we look at different ways in which we can protect the society or the environment rather in which we live in. We then have the global, which is also called the international, where we look at trading with other countries and how it affects us. Now, when you look at all those components, it must tell you that we do not have control over all of these. We can only adapt to these challenges, which means, yes, we cannot control, but we must find ways in which we can work with these environments. So for instance, if I am a business that is selling ice cream, then it automatically means that in summer, I am going to make a lot of money because it's hot. But in winter, it's most definitely going to give me less profit because people are feeling cold and ice cream would be the last thing that they think about. Since I have no control over the weather, I need to adapt to the situation and find different ways to make profit even in cold weathers. Now think about that for a second. There are certain challenges that we can experience in the macro environment. So we have the political changes. So for instance, the ruling party that you know right now might not necessarily be the ruling party in 2 years to come. So the one that will be newly elected will come with different changes that are going to affect our business operations. Then we have also changes in income levels of our consumers. So you might have noticed that because of certain challenges that have occurred in this year, people had less income to spend. Now, does that affect our business directly? It definitely does, because which means that people are now focused on buying essentials instead of wants. And then you need to then know how is it that we can deal with these different types of macro environment components. So one thing is that we need to be involved. For instance, when we look at the economy, There can be situations where people have low income levels because they cannot afford to buy our wants. What you can do as a business is to create job opportunities. Now, the more job opportunities are created, the more income people spend in the business and more profits are made. We must also invest in CSR programs, which stands for Corporate Social Responsibility, where businesses must invest in the community and the environment in which they live in. We can also help in providing infrastructure. So this could include fixing the potholes on the roads or whatever infrastructure that you can think about. Then we can also improve the education and training programs of the society in which we can live in. So the more skilled people are, the more employable they become. Now, this helps in making sure that we are involved in the challenges that occur in the macro environment. Now, because we are involved, there are different benefits that can come out of this, which means if we are investing in CSR projects, for example, you'd find that my company has helped in building a library in the nearby community. This will definitely give me a good publicity, meaning that the society will love my business and will therefore support my business at all costs. I am also going to attract skilled employees and investors. So the more good image we have, the more investors want to invest in our business to grow. Now, also very interesting is that the more we are involved in these macro environment components, such as your CSR and creating jobs, we are going to get tax rebates, which means that the business is going to pay less tax because they are already contributing towards the society. Now, grade 11s, let's quickly look at what we have covered so far. We have looked at the micro, the market, and the macro, as well as how we can adapt to the challenges of the macro. Now, if you think about it, when we cannot control, we must adapt. But what is it that we can do then to adapt? We must have information about what is happening under each component of the macro. So if I know that there's going to be inflation in the next 2 weeks, I am able to prepare in advance so that my business does not suffer. Then very interesting is that we can deal with this by having mergers, takeovers, acquisitions, and alliances. Now, you would have seen already that there are different businesses that are joining together to become one so that they can overcome the challenges of the macro. Now, we can also lobby, which means that businesses can come together to influence the decisions that are made in the legal environment and the political environment. Now, all of these help businesses to make sure that they still make profit in the near future. Now, I hope that this was a mouthful and it is making you to understand more the different environments that exist in businesses. Now, very important to note is that you must be able to differentiate the micro from the macro. Remember that micro is inside the business and macro is the external that we have no control over. I hope you have enjoyed this lesson, grade 11s. Hoping to see you next time. This is goodbye from me.